Hello, YouTube. How's it going? Brendan Houdek here, yet with another live chat. The last one of 2020. Can you believe it? We've already had 12 of these, or maybe a little less. Maybe a little less during the initial moment of the pandemic here. But wow, we've had a lot of these every month, getting to see all of you folks. It's been really, really great. The very last one of 2020. Can't believe we're in December already. A whole new year is upon us, a new year of vocal joy, vocal glory. Really, really excited to be with all of you today. You know the deal. You can ask me anything and everything that you want to know. We talk about singing, lots of singing. We talk about speech coaching, public speaking. We talk about voice impressions. We talk about speech pathology and different things that can go wrong with the voice. What else do we talk about? I don't know. Whatever you all want. So feel free to ask those questions and let's talk some voice. All right, Empress Psycho. I would like to create high-quality singing videos on social media. What equipment would you recommend to start someone on a budget? Yeah, great question. To be completely transparent with you, I am not too much involved in the production or the editing or the video camera stuff for my videos. I have an editor who does that for me, and he's amazing. You've all seen his work on voice breakdown. But I do know there's a few things you can definitely do without much of a budget at all. These days, cell phones can do a lot. I personally am a big Apple user. No offense to the Android users out there, but I'm a big Apple user, and the cameras on iPhones these days are fantastic. So the camera itself can really do a lot for you. Things you will need, though, to make it work. You'll definitely need a stand of some sort, right? I have a little tripod that holds my iPhone, and I can position it how I want. So the stand is very important. With the stand, a really, really important thing is the angle, right? When I do these sorts of videos, if you notice, I'm pretty evenly spaced in this frame here, right? That's intentional. For me, I'm using a desktop right now, and the camera is right in line with my eyes. And as I'm talking to all of you, I'm not looking at myself, I'm looking at the camera. When you look at the camera, it looks like you are looking at people. So make sure you get that angle right. You don't want to be looking down on it or looking up at it. Get that angle right. So get the stand, get the angle right. You also might want to invest in a ring light or some other sort of light source. For these videos, I just happen to have a light here that shines on me and lights me up nice. But for more professional videos, you definitely are going to want to think about where is that light coming from. Natural daylight is always great, but you can't always do that when you're filming. So have some sort of light source that you can manipulate to get that lighting the best it can be. And the other thing I would say is you might also, if you're doing a live video like this, obviously there's no script, I'm just here and I talk to you. But if you're doing a prepared video and you want to write out the script, you might want to invest in a teleprompter, not some super expensive one, but they have these little reflective screens that basically your iPad or your tablet or whatever you have will go in the base of it, and it reflects what you're reading. But what it does is the camera goes through that pane, that reflective pane. So you can look directly at the camera, yet you see the words, but the camera won't pick up the words. So if you're ever doing something very scripted, you might want to look into that as well. So without even buying a super duper fancy camera, you can use the phone you have already, get a stand for it, get a light for it, get the angles right, and maybe a teleprompter if you need a script. All that won't cost you much at all if you already have the phone. If you want to do it, though, with a more high-quality camera, that's something that's not necessarily my expertise, unfortunately, but I'm sure there are plenty of cameras that you can research online that you don't need to get world's greatest camera, right? A lot of cameras these days can do pretty much what you'll need just for some social media stuff. hopefully that helps. And Emperor Psycho, you said you want these to be singing videos. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that. We'd love to hear what you plan on putting out there, and we definitely will all like to like, comment, subscribe, all of that. So let us know a little bit about what kind of videos you're thinking of doing. Zoya says, "Hi, Brendan. Hope you're doing fine." I'm doing great, Zoya. I hope you are as well. I remember you were talking about the way to work with a metronome. Step forward, half step back. Good memory. Works perfect for me. Awesome. Do you think that the same principle might be applicable to work on higher notes? For example, if I need to reach an A, I start from C, then go to E. I love that idea, Zoya. That is a great, great, great idea. So a little bit of context for those who aren't here for that conversation. I was saying that the best way to get good at doing things fast is to do it with a metronome. But if you just go faster, 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 you'll see that you'll tap out pretty quick. What I have found to be very effective is, let's say you're starting at 50, then you'll go up 10, down 5, up 10, down 5, up 10, down 5. And this going back and forth, yet still getting progressively faster, I have always found really helps me calibrate. It helps me not only learn the riff, whether it be guitar, piano, or vocal, not only help me learn the riff faster, but I always find it helps me learn the riff better. I get a better sense of time. And if there's one thing I have seen with singers more than instrumentalists, it's sometimes a lack of that time, right? It's very common that singers don't always have the best rhythm. And they shouldn't, they're not drummers, but we do want to lock in, right? And sometimes if you're singing with a band and you're not playing to a click, that rushing can, throw the whole band off. So we definitely want our singers to be in line with that rhythm. So that's what we talked about the metronomes, going up 10, down 5. So 50, 60, 55, 65, 60, 70, right? Up 10, down 5, up 10, down 5. What Zoya is saying is, can that back and forth principle, while still progressing, work well for notes? So Zoya is saying, instead of going ma 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 on a C, ma 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 on a D, ma 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 on an E, ma 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 on an F, Zoya is saying, what if we start on C, ma 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 ma, and then instead of going to D, go to E. So ma 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 ma, ma 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 ma, then back down to D. Ma 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 ma, ma 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 ma, ma 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 ma, ma 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 ma, right? Back and forth on those. I love that idea. It's going to really help your note and pitch accuracy, as well as some registration issues, because it's easier to go gradually up or gradually down because your chords know I just got to go a little longer, a little shorter, a little longer, a little shorter. But if you're doing this game of longer, halfway longer, even longer, a little bit, right? That game is really getting your chords acquainted and acclimated to having more specificity in how we go from one to the other. In fact, very common vocal exercise, right? You've heard these kind of things before, these note skippers. Right? Should have been a major chord there. Those note skippers are very, very common exercises for that exact reason, Zoya. Excellent, excellent idea, and really proud of you for taking one concept and extending it to other areas of the voice. I think that is brilliant. And I would encourage everyone to do similar things. If something catches your ear in our conversation, see, where else can I take that? How else does that principle apply? I thought that was an awesome, awesome addition to this conversation. Thank you, Zoya. Lucas has a question. Hey, Brendan. Hey, Lucas. How much time do you think it should take to develop a good vibrato? Lucas, that is a great question. And unfortunately, there's no specific answer. Everyone is going to have their strengths, their weaknesses. things that come quicker to them, things that take longer. However, I will say that everyone can do it, right? I'm a very firm believer that, yes, some people might have more natural inclinations towards certain skills, but it doesn't mean you can't learn it, right? For example, everyone, I am world's worst basketball player. I don't know if I've ever made a shot. I am so bad at that sport. But do I believe that if I really worked at it, I'd eventually make one in? I think so. So they tell me, right? So that's a hard skill for me, but if I take my time, I'll eventually get there. Same thing with vibrato, Lucas. It really is something that for some people is challenging. For me, that was always one that kind of came easier, but trust me, there are other areas that I, to this day, have trouble with, right? So I think another question that can help you is, well, what do I need to do to get there, right? What are some exercises I need to do to get there? And I really like these note oscillation exercises. My favorite one, took this from Justin. Me, 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 me. Hear that? Me. Now, technically, those are actual two different notes, whereas vibrato is on the same note, right? But just oscillating just enough outside of that perfect pitch that it doesn't become or, but it's just outside of that. So you see that, you hear that warble, right? But if you learn how to me, you start to get pretty good at doing this stretching and shortening of the vocal cords. So I would do that one. And to bring back a throwback to 2 minutes ago, using the metronome on this. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Right? And then speed that up. Let's go up 10. Me, 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 me. Me, me, me. Whatever pattern you want to do. Then back down 5, then up 10, then back 5, up 10. That will really help you to gain control over this kind of movement. If you're doing this during all of your practice times, Lucas, I have no doubt that within even a few practice sessions, but in a few weeks, a few months, you're really going to start to feel more control over that. I can guarantee you more control. Whether it's the most perfect vibrato that ever lived, that will take some time. But you definitely, even just in a few weeks' time, if you're doing vibrato exercise every day, you're going to find some real control over that. Justin's got some great videos on it too, so I would highly recommend watching those. You can do it. I turned away for a second, I looked back, and there's 4 new questions. This is great. Alley Cat says, hi, Brendan. Hi, Alley Cat. What do you think about the exercises with a straw? What are straw exercises good for? And would you recommend incorporating it into singing training? What do I think about them? I love them. Big fan. Big fan. Let's explain, for those who might not have ever seen this, what straw exercises are. Get a straw and try to make noise through it, right? Not just blowing, but actually vibrating vocal cords. And as you do that, you are doing what's called a semi-occluded vocal tract exercise. A semi-occluded vocal tract exercise. Semi-occluded means sort of closed off, right? Semi-occluded. Vocal tract, so this is the vocal tract from your vocal cords out here. So a sort of closed off vocal tract, right? When you are singing through a straw, it really makes the space that the sound is coming out very small. It occludes it. Not completely. Your mouth's not closed, but it makes it really small. The smaller the space for the sound to escape, the more resistance you're going to feel, right? If anybody's ever tried making noise through a straw, you will find that you feel a little bit of resistance. There's a little bit of pressure. The smaller the diameter of the straw, So if you get a stirring straw versus a big jumbo straw, the smaller the diameter, the greater the resistance you will feel. It's not the only semi-occluded vocal tract exercise. You also have, so you have the straws, you also have lip trills. My personal favorite. I like them a little better than straws. Lip trills. You have V's, v, you have Z's, z, you have tongue trills, r, right? All of these are exercises that give you a little bit of resistance, a little bit of pressure, okay? That's the semi-occluded vocal tract exercise. Now, why do we want that, right? Why do we want that pressure, that resistance? How is that a good thing? A little bit of physics here. You have your vocal cords, right? And then you have air pressure beneath them and above them. The air pressure beneath them we call subglottal pressure. Sub means below, glottal means your vocal cords, okay? The glottis, glottal means your vocal cords. Subglottal is air pressure below the vocal cords. Supraglottal is air pressure above the vocal cords, okay? Now, these air pressures, when they are closest to equal, so you have your vocal cords and the two pressures acting on those cords, when they are closest to equal, the cords vibrate the easiest. It takes the least amount of effort. It takes the least amount of strain. They have nice, firm, clean compression pretty naturally. And so we want those pressures to be as close as we can to equal. Now, are they typically equal? No. Most people tend to provide more subglottal pressure than supraglottal pressure, right? There's more pressure pushing up, that's where the air comes from, than pushing down back on it. So, a semi-occluded vocal tract exercise provides some resistance here so that it increases the supraglottal pressure, the pressure above the vocal cords. If you put a little pressure here, a little resistance here, or a straw, you're going to push a little bit of resistance back on top of the vocal cords. And that's a good thing because it helps to balance out the pressures. Let me say all of that in 10 seconds. Two pressures must be equal. One is greater, so we increase the other. We do that by resistance. That is what the straw exercise does. Highly, highly, highly recommend. The lip trill, though, will also do just fine. I lip trill every day of my life. Big fan. Really, really big fan. And most of my singers and speakers find that after we do a little bit of a lip trill regimen, that both in the moment and also over the course of a few days and weeks of doing this every day, they find that their voice just feels better. It feels easier. It helps to calibrate things. So I would highly recommend them, whether you use straws, whether you use lip trills, doesn't matter to me. Your second question in there is, how do I recommend incorporating it into singing training? Just do it musically, right? Just taking it into a musical context. Yeah, love them. Highly recommend semi-occluded vocal tract stuff. Big, big fan. Empress Psycho has given us a follow-up on their social media presence. I'm going to focus on pop rock standards, contemporary with some musical theater added in. Once I develop it more, I'll let all of you know. I love this. I love this. Please let us know. Keep us updated. Keep us posted. Are these just going to be you doing performances? If so, we are down for that. That's going to be super fun to see. Really, really cool. By the way, everyone, we've been doing these chats for some time now. If you're brand new to this, welcome. But if you're one of the folks who's been here for a while, we got a little community going on here. Feel free to share those social media accounts. Feel free to share anything you're working on that you want to put out into the world. We'd love to hear you. Alley Cat. I've been working on dragging my chest voice up. When I get to B4, C5, it sometimes has some distortion. I usually stop going when I hear the distortion, but it doesn't hurt. It feels like something's in the way. What do I need to do to build up my chest voice coordination on the higher notes? Yeah, a couple of things I would say. I know what you're talking about. I think a lot of singers have experienced that. In my experience, it has been a bit of a registration compression issue, in my experience. All of these things obviously work together, so sometimes it's a breath flow thing, sometimes it's this. But I find it's my chords not knowing what to do, right? They know what the pitch is, but they don't know how compressed or decompressed they should be. We don't know if there needs to be a resonance change. We don't know if I should do more or less air. It's just having a hard time coordinating. So it usually, in my experience, isn't damage or something to that effect, although you always want to make sure. So I would always recommend to everyone on the call, get scoped, get a baseline, make sure you know what your voice sounds like and what it looks like. But likely it's just a coordination issue. So there's a couple of things I would recommend you try. Number one, slides. I'm all about the slides, right? So when you're doing a slide, if we do go, right? When we do a slide, we want to make sure that I'm maintaining those similar qualities of the first note on the second note, right? I don't want to go right? I don't want to add force. I don't want to add tension. I don't want to add compression. I want to see if I can maintain that same coordination because I had it on the previous note, right? And so you might need to think of some of the variables here that need to change. Do I need to give less air? Do I need to decompress a little bit? Do I need to shift my resonance a little bit? Add some nasal resonance, add some oral resonance. Think of those different variables you can manipulate and try to go in the opposite directions, right? So let me give you an example. If I take that go, the first time I'm going to show you what it sounds like when I give more compression. Maybe that's the issue. Go. Oh, that wasn't it. Let's try decompressing. Go. I got rid of the distortion, but I think I now decompressed too much, right? So now I find the balance. Go. Not bad. Go. Go. That's not so bad at all, right? So it's trying to find what are these different elements that have these binary dimensions, right? So there's more air, less air. There's more compression, less compression. There's higher pitch, lower pitch. There's nasal, there's oral, right? Trying to find those elements and trying out both sides of it and seeing if one helps. But doing that in the context of a slide, I feel is always really helpful for me. And make the intervals small. That was only a third. Don't go. Go. Don't make it a gigantic octave or more, because then it's just, you're not going to be able to maintain those small changes that we're trying to make, right? So I would say small interval, try the different variables, especially airflow, compression, and resonance. And a little trick that works for me, I can't promise this works for everybody, but when I am sliding, this is a little abstract, but stick with me. I don't imagine I'm going from F to A. I imagine that I'm bringing F up to A. I know that seems confusing. I don't think of it as two separate notes. Go. I think of it as go. I'm taking that same note, I got it locked in, and I just happen to be moving the pitch. Now, obviously, that's not scientifically accurate. If I change the pitch, it's a new note, right? But in my mind, if I'm just dragging that same coordination up, I can usually do it, right? But when I think about it as some brand new note, I end up subconsciously changing everything. Now, maybe that's just me, but perhaps that will work for you. Give it a shot. Joanna says, hi, Brendan. Hi, Joanna. Haven't been watching these live chats for a while because I've been feeling pretty hopeless about singing. We're sorry to hear that. I thought I'd gotten over the feeling of I can't sing, so I shouldn't, but the last month or so I've been having a hard time even singing along in songs in the car when I'm not driving alone. It's not really a question, but maybe you can say something encouraging. I will do my best, Joanna. First off, I think it's really important for us to talk about what singing is, everyone. I, as you know, have many singers that I work with. And a common theme is that singers beat themselves up. They beat themselves up. And so much so that they can't even make the progress they want to because they're so busy beating themselves up. Sometimes with singers, we can't even get through a phrase without them going, "Ah, no, that was wrong. I can't. And at the end of the day, everyone, we're making funny sounds with our mouth. That's all singing is. That's all my voice impression work is. That's all my speech coaching work is. We're making funny sounds with our mouth. So the first thing I would say, Joanna, is let's not take it too seriously, right? What the real goal of singing is, and we can debate this philosophically, but one of the main goals of singing is to bring you joy. It's to bring you joy. It's not to prove you're the best singer in the world, if that even could be a thing, right? It's not to prove to others that you can sing. It's to show yourself joy. It's to have fun, right? Think of karaoke. 95% of people who sing karaoke are not good at karaoke, right? They're not good in the traditional sense singers. And yet they have an amazing time. I love karaoke because it's the one place where people sing and they get out of their heads. They get out of the self-consciousness, right? They're able to simply have joy. So singing, first and foremost, Joanna, should be fun. And if we're thinking too much about I'm not good at this, then we've kind of forgotten about what singing is, right? It's like, think of an activity that you love to do, right? I like to ride bikes. I like to play board games. I like to watch The Twilight Zone, favorite show of all time. If I'm doing those things and I'm miserable, well, then I'm not actually doing them, right? Because part of the joy of watching The Twilight Zone for me is loving it. And so that's actually part of the definition of Brendan watching The Twilight Zone, is having a really darn good time. So for you with singing, if we're singing and not enjoying it, I would argue it's not actually singing. It's making unjoyful noises. And as you know of our slogan, we want to make joyful noises. So to recap here, number one, the whole point's to have fun. We're making funny noises with our mouth. Number two, if we're not having fun, I would argue we're not actually singing. And another thing I wanted to say is, this is a little of my personal experience and a little bit of faith and spirituality here, so take this as you will. But I think of the fact that each of us is created differently and created for a purpose. Obviously, we have skills that we can improve upon. One day, I will make a basketball shot. One day, Lucas is going to nail this vibrato, right? And one day, Joanna, your singing will be so much better, traditionally better, than it is today. But even if it never did, you are made the way you are made. You have the skill set that you currently have for a reason, for a purpose, and that's a blessing. That's a blessing. And in my personal faith community, we often talk about the idea that no matter what your voice sounds like, God finds it beautiful. He does, because God made it that way. And so that's a little bit of my spirituality. Throw that your way. All I can say is I know that your voice is made for a purpose, and it's beautiful in and of itself. That being said, practice every day is going to make it closer to what you want it to be, right? So it's already beautiful. It should be bringing you joy. The whole point is to bring you joy. We don't need to take it too seriously because we're just making funny noises with our mouth at the end of the day. But if you want to sound different, you have that ability. Hard practice will get you there. My very last thought that I will say is, There's somebody out there who wishes they could sing like you. Everybody thinks that they are not as good as everyone else. Trust me. We call it imposter syndrome. Everyone thinks that they're not that good at their thing, at least every once in a while. So Joanna, as Justin would say, don't lose that joy. Don't lose that passion. Don't let anyone tell you you can't sing. We both know it's not true. I think Justin has some real wisdom in saying that every episode. All right. I hope that helps, Joanna. Where was I? Alley Cat says, terrific, thanks. Just to follow up on the straw, is it helpful if you have a tendency to push? You're asking, is the straw helpful if normally you have a tendency to push? Will the straw help to decrease that? Yeah, it will. It will, because again, when you push, you tend to get more of that subglottal pressure, right? So the straw, the lip trill, whatever, the semi-occluded vocal tract exercise will help to give you more of that supraglottal pressure, evening out the pressures, definitely. That being said, one thing I do want to say, I have seen people abuse the semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. When they do the straw, you just see all these veins bulging and they're pushing, pushing, pushing. It should not be an Ironman competition, right? It's just blowing through it. And what happens, happens. Don't try to force it. Let me put it this way. Your straw singing should not be as loud as your normal singing. The straw will dampen the sound. Don't try to be super duper loud. If you feel pressure and strain and pain, stop, right? But if you're doing it correctly, it definitely will help with your pushing in the real world, because you'll find that you're able to get that good vocal cord coordination and connection easier. Whereas people who push feel they need to give more effort to get that sound out, and then it's a vicious cycle because they need more pressure and more pressure. But the lip trills, the straw exercises help to calibrate that so that you don't need to do that. And you find, oh, I can get to that note without much effort at all. Zoya, I love to sing a song replacing the words with lip trills or Z. Helps me to relax and find better coordination. Absolutely. You know, Zoya today, everyone, gets the gold star. Zoya has had some really awesome ideas today. This sound replacement thing is something I do in so many different contexts. So one thing Zoya said is lip trilling on the song, right? So whatever song you're singing. Let's say you're doing have yourself a merry little Christmas, right? Do it on a lip trill. Do it on a lip trill. That will help you. Then when you go to sing it afterwards, imagine that lip trill. Have yourself. I already like my voice better than when I first did it. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Right? You know what's funny? The first time I did that note, the high note, that D, I wanted to do it on a head voice because I didn't really feel the strength there. I went, have yourself a, which is cool, but I wimped out a little bit. Then once I did it on a lip trill, it gave me the calibration, the coordination, and the confidence to go, have yourself a merry little Christmas, right? So that's pretty cool. The lip trill with one go helped me calibrate that a bit. But I use this sound replacement idea on everything. Let's say I'm trying to get more of a connected sound. I'll do something like a gig. Gig, 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 gig. Right? I do this all the time. If I need a headier sound, I'll do it on a who. Woo, woo, right? Whatever it is, I use a sound that helps me get that coordination, throw it into the song, then remove it, putting the words back in, but feeling as if they are the actual sounds. It's a little bit of this kind of work, imagining the sound while you're actually singing the words, right? It's a little bit of doing two things at once, but you start with just the sound, then you move back to the words. You can also scaffold that, meaning maybe you don't go straight from sounds to words, but you do sounds, and then you do some words or half words. So if it's maybe it's have yourself, right? Have yourself. You go half and half. Easier way into the actual words. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Zoya says, you sound so oh, thank you, Zoya. Thank you. You know, I hope Joanna's still on the call with us today. This is important. I'm going to let you in on a little something here. Zoya just said, you sound so beautifully on that, right? Do you want to know something, Joanna? I thought it was terrible. I really did. I didn't think it was my best work. Zoya did. Go back to our whole imposter syndrome thing, right? We often think that we are so much worse than we actually are. In that moment, I went, I could do better. I thought it was a little too dark. I thought it was a little too, right? But the truth is, it probably was fine. It probably was good. Emperor Psycho says, yes, beautiful, very at ease. None of this is me going, look how nice it sounded. In my mind, I didn't think it was that great. So Joanna, when you are struggling with your singing, remember that we judge ourselves so harshly. We judge ourselves so harshly. Look, I love this. Look at these compliments. Thank you, everyone. And I thought it was so bad. So that really should be an inspiration to all of us, that we judge ourselves so much worse than we do. And the truth is, if all of you heard a recording of your voice, but had no recollection of doing it, so you didn't think it was you, right? You didn't know it was you. I don't know how this could ever happen. Amnesia, maybe. But you record something and go, wow, you would all say, who is that singer? They sound so great. But as soon as someone tells you, oh, it's you, you go, oh, I hate it. I don't like it. I don't like it. That's part of this weird imposter syndrome that we have. But the truth is, other people find your voice very beautiful. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. People like it. Awesome. This is a great day, everyone. Feeling some real breakthroughs here. And a very supportive community. So, Joanna, we want you to stick with the singing. I want to hear at the next live chat that it was just a month of vocal joy. I would say vocal progress, but I care more about the vocal joy more than anything. All right, everyone, keep those questions coming. As you can tell, I'm in the holiday spirit. It's December 6th, the end of the year is coming up. All I'm thinking about is Christmas songs, holiday songs. Zoya, can you break down Chewbacca? It's not for me, it's for a friend. So, I did a Star Wars series on voice breakdown, and you'll notice that absent from that was Chewbacca, because I'm still working on him myself. Still working on Chewbacca myself. For the record, everyone, gigantic Star Wars fan. Gigantic. If anybody ever wants to talk some Star Wars, can't do it in this chat, but we definitely have to at some point. But Chewbacca, I can tell you what he's doing. I just can't do it as well as he does. So it's something called a uvular trill. You have your uvula, the punching bag, and your soft palate in the back there. And you can trill that while actually using your voice at the same time. It's not something I can quite do yet, but think like when you're gargling, right? But then get the voice in there. But I can't quite do it yet. I've always cheated it in the past and did a tongue trill instead. I've done a tongue trill instead, and it can get you there. It can be something that fools a few people. Can fool a lot of people. But it's actually in the back. It's the back of the tongue and the soft palate, bringing them together, blowing air through them so that they flap, which is what a trill is, right? So look at the lip trill. Bringing the lips loosely together, throwing air through there, they flap. Tongue trill, same thing. Now you got to do that with your soft palate and the back of your tongue. That's the challenge. Can't quite get there. May the force be with me, indeed. Indeed, if I'm ever going to get a good Chewbacca sound. We did, however, Jar Jar. Jar Jar Binks is on there. I know, everyone's least favorite. We did Yoda, and we did Palpatine. So it's not a bad batch. Just a couple days ago, I was watching an old film with James Earl Jones. It's before Star Wars. It's 1972, this film. New Hope happens in 1977, right? And I couldn't help but just hear Darth Vader the entire time. Every time he talked, I just heard Darth Vader. I just heard, "I find your lack of faith disturbing," the entire time. Took me out of the movie. It really did. Alley Cat says, question. My teacher used to tell me to yawn when I sing. She was a classical instructor. How important is yawning for contemporary singing? Great question. Love it. Yawning. What's the deal with yawning? Dropping the larynx. So when you yawn, you drop your larynx. Everyone sees my larynx right here. Watch what happens when I yawn. It drops, right? So by yawning, you are helping that larynx drop. You're opening up the space. Tends to darken the resonance. And a big thing in classical singing, two big things. One, classical singing is all about not raising your larynx. So they don't want no raising the larynx. And they're bigger on darker tones, right? Ave Maria. Want that open, big sound. So in classical singing, that's a no-no to raise the larynx to have a brighter sound. And to be fair, it is, to the untrained, healthier, right? When you raise the larynx, there's a little bit more tension, a little bit more pressure, and there's a smaller space. So if you have a smaller space, but you're blasting air through there, that can, lead to damage and things. But if you learn how to do a raised larynx, and you can do it with control and ease, and you're not forcing, and you're not straining, then go for it, right? At New York Vocal Coaching, we believe that the larynx height is a style changer. It's NSYNC versus Josh Groban. I've used this example before. If we have NSYNC, "You may hate me, but it ain't no lie, baby, bye, bye, bye." It's appropriate. Listen to Justin Timberlake. "Very here, just hit me with the truth," right? But if you do it with Josh Groban, "You raise me up," it'd be very strange. Conversely, however, "You raise me up so I can stand on mountains," that's appropriate. But you don't want, "You may hate me, but it ain't no lie," right? So the larynx height is a style changer. For contemporary music, it's less important because a lot of contemporary singers sing with a high larynx. Think of all the pop stars right now. That being said, the 80s were a different time. Think of the 80s. "Don't you forget about me." A lot richer. "Shout, shout, let it all out." Tears for Fears, if anybody's a fan, I'm with you on that. But for contemporary singing, it's less important, with this big caveat. I would encourage everyone learn how to do it. Because oftentimes we raise our larynx when we're ascending. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And that's a problem. We want to be able to choose our larynx height. And so I say, learn how to do them all. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Neutral. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Or let me go up while I go up. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Let me go down while I go up. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Or we could do go down while I go down. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Go that way. Or don't heal yourself on me, Rado. Or start low and go up. Don't heal yourself on me, Rado. Learn how to manipulate it. Move it all over the place. You will find that it's helpful to be able to manipulate it. It's helpful to learn how to manipulate everything. But if you're somebody who's singing contemporary and you find you're having a lot of strain, could be your larynx is too high, or that it's being forced too high, not being delicately placed there. I hope that helps. Lucas, what exercise do you recommend to become able to inhale more air into the diaphragm? Okay, good question. Let me give a clarification. The diaphragm gets way too much credit, everyone. Way too much credit. For the record, air does not go into your diaphragm. This is very, very important. It might not have been what you meant, Lucas, but it is a very important thing just for everyone to know. The diaphragm does not take in air. It doesn't do it. Your lungs take in air. It's kind of like food goes into your stomach, not into your brain, right? There's a place for that. Air goes into your lungs, not into your big toe, right? So certain body parts are responsible for being receptacles for certain things. The lungs are the receptacles for air and only the lungs. The lungs sit right here. The diaphragm is just a muscle. It's just a muscle. It's like a sheet, a muscular sheet that's underneath the lungs. And what it does is it drops down and out of the way so that the lungs can go down and out, right? Think of these balloons. In order to expand, this muscle that's here needs to go drop down, okay? So that diaphragm needs to go out. No worries, Lucas. People use this language all the time, and they might mean taking air this way. But it's very important because sometimes it causes people to have slightly the wrong idea, or they waste their time doing all these other exercises, right? So as far as getting more air into the lungs, I would say we need to work on that lower breathing. So avoid the air going up here. So we don't want our shoulders to go, right? Instead, I like to put one hand here, one hand down here. On the belly, air doesn't go into our bellies, but when you breathe in, the diaphragm moves, which moves the belly. Chain reaction. Take your hand, put it there. And when you breathe in, that belly should expand, right? Give you a little better angle here. Do we see how this grows, but this does not move? Watch. This stays relatively relaxed. So the two-hand exercise is one thing you can do. I would also encourage you to do that slower, like this. And see how long you can go for continually inhaling, right? You might even want to get out a timer and slowly bring in that air and see how long you can go for. When people first start, they feel like they can only inhale for like 2 seconds, right? But I can assure you, you can inhale for a lot longer than 2. See what I mean? There's a lot more you can go in for. And so that's an exercise I do. How long can I bring that air in for? Also, don't neglect the exhale. How long can you do that for, right? And other techniques, you definitely want to feel not only a stomach expansion, but you ultimately can feel what people call that back and side expansion. Imagine that when you're doing that breath in, that you almost feel like a big giant barrel, right? So that's what I would say for that. Alley Cat said impressive, and I'm wondering, there could be a Star Wars reference. Could be a Star Wars reference. If it's not, well, thank you. Impressive. Most impressive. Episode 5, Luke and Vader. Tries to put him into the... You guys should watch the movie. It's been out for 40 years, so highly recommend. All right, we're down to the final 10 minutes here. Let's get all these last questions in. I wanted to acknowledge Joanna said, thank you, Brendan. I will try to find joy in singing again. Awesome, awesome. Well, let it be known, Joanna, that you just brought all of us joy in saying that. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, Alec has a question. Working on compression, buub, and goog. Only in these chats could we say things like this, right? I'm working on my buub and my goog. When I do the exercises and am ascending, I feel like I'm going into a head style voice. Okay, or should I try to keep more of a mixed chest style? If you're working on compression, then going into a head voice would be the opposite of what you want to do. So the second thing you said, you should try to keep more of a mixed chest if you're trying to learn how to compress more. But I would always recommend doing both, compression and decompression. Work on both for sure. And then you say when ascending and work on compression. Yeah, so right if you're doing, you said buub. Buub, 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 buub. Buub, 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 buub. Buub, 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 buub. Buub, 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 buub. Let's jump a little bit here. Buub, 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 buub. You might be going buub, 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 buub. And that's the very spot that you need to do the compression, right? Buub, 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 buub. I'm bringing that compression together there. Yeah, so yes, more chesty, more mixy there. Alley Cat says, okay, which series of Star Wars was the first or last? I have an argument with my son. Zoya, oh, this is good, guys. This is good. Zoya says 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, then again 4, 5, 6. So I would say this, Alley Cat. I would say this. If you're watching it for the first time, I have a pretty specific order. After that, you can have fun with it. So yeah, if you're watching it for the very first time, you have to go 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. Totally agree with Zoya on that. You have to go 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. It's meant to be a prequel. That's what a prequel is. You watch it after, even though it takes place before. If you watch the prequels first, you're going to ruin everything for yourself. Like, oh, I knew he was his father. How is this surprising? Right? Sorry if I ruined that for anyone. But you definitely want to watch 4, 5, 6 first. And then it's the first 6 movies are really fun because you get this cool cycle, right? You see the fall and the redemption of Darth Vader. Well, you see the redemption of Darth Vader and then his fall, and we kind of come full circle. I love that personally. There are other films also, though. So once you watch 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, then you can kind of go wherever you want because there is 7, 8, 9, and there's also Solo and Rogue One. But my favorite order to watch the first 6 in, ready for this, everyone? 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6. You start with 4 and 5, you meet our characters, builds up to that big climax moment, but then, now that you found out who Vader is, you go back and see his past, and then you conclude it with the big finale with episode 6. Anyway, back to the voice. Any voice questions, anyone? If you get me started on Star Wars, it's just going to be all day. Remember we were talking about videos before and lights above us? This light decided to just go dark for no reason. All right, the last few minutes, everyone, get in your questions. These are not only the last minutes of today. These are the last minutes of 2020. This is it. The last few minutes of 2020. Get your questions in now, or you'll have to wait an entire year to talk to me again. I'm glad you liked that, Alley Cat. I'm glad. I'm wondering if that was your order. You can watch them in whatever order you like. Star Wars is for everyone. It's for everyone. Any last questions? I'm thinking back on this entire year of questions that we've had. We've had questions about the larynx, questions about voices, questions about finding the joy in singing, questions about registration, questions about compression. It's amazing. What a year. What a year. Lucas says, have you finally seen Dimash? Yesterday he released a new song on his channel. I'm the worst. You keep recommending this, and I continue to have. No, I think I did though. I think right after last time, I think I watched it. But I need to become more acquainted, Lucas. I definitely do. I definitely do. Zoya says, thank you so much, Brendan. Love your chats. Happy holidays. May the force be with you always. May the force be with you, Zoya. Happy holidays. Fun little connection here. Do not watch the Star Wars holiday special. If anybody has ever seen that, it is painful. It is an hour and a half of just, it's painful, everyone. I do not recommend it. Do not recommend it. Joanna says, how do I hear what someone is doing their voice on recording or similar? How do I do a breakdown of a singing voice? I have a preferred method. If you've seen a voice breakdown, I have my criteria of what I listen for, but it's definitely twofold. Number one, knowing what body parts produce what vocal changes. So, for example, knowing that the pitch, if you raise it, we lengthen the vocal cords. Getting acquainted with pitch changes. Knowing the larynx makes it brighter or darker. Or right? Knowing what body parts produce what changes is the first thing. And then the second thing is listening to a billion voices so you can start to pick it out, right? I've gotten pretty good at this over the years, but there are times where I hear a voice and I go, how the heck are they doing that, right? So you're not alone if you have those moments of, I just don't know. But learn what the body parts do and listen to a million different voices to get a better sense. Alley Cat says, well, I'm older, so I watched Star Wars the way they came out. You want to know something though, Alley Cat? I saw 4, 5, and 6 when they re-released them in 1997. They re-released them in theaters before Phantom Menace Episode 1 came out in 1999. So I've actually seen every Star Wars in theaters. Can you believe that? Emperor Psycho says, wonderful live stream, lots of fun. I thought so too. Happy holidays. Happy holidays to you, Emperor Psycho. Joanna says, maybe not that complicated, but just how do I figure out the coordination they're using? Yeah, so I think, Joanna, knowing the extremes, right? Knowing that this is chest and this is head and everything else is somewhere in between. And ask yourself, is it closer to this or closer to this? And that'll give you a good sense of which direction they are, right? Yeah. Happy holidays. May the force be with you. I love all the Star Wars love today. This has been great. May the force be with everyone. Happy holidays. Well, listen, everyone. Again, have yourselves a merry little Christmas, merry little New Year's, whatever holiday you celebrate. I hope that you are filled with joy, vocal glory. I'm looking forward to seeing you all next year. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. I will see you all in 2021. Until then, be safe, be healthy, and be filled with joy. See you all very soon. Bye.